Why are you arriving in an Uber? What happened to the SUV we bought you for your 24th birthday? My grandfather's voice sliced through the crisp Nashville afternoon like a blade. He stood on the front porch of his beautiful Victorian home, weathered hands gripping the railing as he watched me step out of the rideshare. Confusion creased his face, silver eyebrows knitting together so tightly my stomach dropped. I froze. Before I could answer, before I could even understand the question, my mother appeared behind him in the doorway. She was smiling. That smile. The one I had learned to recognize over 24 years of being her daughter. The smile that meant she had already crossed a line and decided she was justified. Her sister needed it more, my mom said casually, like she was commenting on the weather. Megan just got that new job across town, and with the baby coming, she really needed reliable transportation. The world went silent. My name is Claire, and I am 24 years old. I work as an assistant manager at a boutique hotel in downtown Nashville. It's a job I fought hard for after graduating from community college 2 years ago. I pay my own rent. My own bills. I've built a life carefully and deliberately, one that exists far away from the chaos that has always defined my family. Or at least, I thought I had. Standing there in my grandfather Thomas's driveway, watching his confusion turn into something darker, I realized distance doesn't always protect you. Some things follow you no matter how far you run. What SUV? I finally asked, my voice barely audible. The question hung between us like smoke. My mother's smile flickered, just for a moment, before she smoothed it back into place. The one Grandpa gave you for your birthday, sweetheart. The black Chevrolet Equinox. Don't tell me you forgot already. I hadn't forgotten. You can't forget something you never knew existed. My 24th birthday had been 3 months ago. I'd worked a double shift at the hotel because we were understaffed, then gone home to my tiny studio apartment and eaten leftover Chinese food while watching old cooking shows. Mom had called for 4 minutes. 4. Long enough to say happy birthday before mentioning that Megan needed her to babysit, and she had to go. No gift. No SUV. Nothing. I never received any car, I said, my voice steadying as reality snapped into focus. No one told me about a car. Grandpa's grip tightened on the porch railing until his knuckles turned white. He was 78, but in that moment he looked like the man who had built a construction empire from nothing. Diane, he said quietly. My mother flinched. You told me Claire had the car, he continued. You told me she loved it. That she drove it to work every day. You said she cried when she saw it. Mom swallowed. Well, the situation changed. Megan really needed it. And Claire's been managing fine with buses and ride shares. She's young. She can handle it. I felt something inside me crack. You gave away a car I bought with my own money, Grandpa said slowly. A car registered in Claire's name. A car meant for her. It's family, Dad, Mom insisted. We share things. Claire understands. Right, Claire? She looked at me, silently begging me to lie. To smooth things over. To be the good daughter I had always been. But I couldn't anymore. No, I said softly. I don't understand. I never did. And I'm done pretending that I do. Grandpa straightened to his full height. Everyone inside, he ordered. Now? The house smelled like cedar wood and old books, exactly the way it always had. It should have felt comforting. Instead, it felt like the ground beneath my childhood memories was shifting. We gathered in the living room. My mother perched on the edge of the antique sofa. My grandmother Ruth emerged from the kitchen, confused. "What's all this about?" "We need to talk," Grandpa said. I stayed standing, my legs unsteady. "When I bought that car," Grandpa said, locking eyes with my mother, "I asked you to arrange for Claire to pick it up. You told me she did. You even sent me a photo of her standing next to it." My heart lurched. "A photo?" I whispered. I looked at my mother. "That picture," I said slowly, realization clicking into place. "Was it taken in front of Megan's house?" Mom's face drained of color. Because Megan had posted a picture 3 months ago. Standing next to a black SUV. Claiming her husband bought it. And I had liked the post. The silence was deafening. The lies started unraveling, the silence in the living room pressed down on my chest until it felt hard to breathe. My mother, Diane, stared at the floor like it might open up and swallow her whole. My grandmother Ruth looked between all of us, confusion slowly turning into concern. Grandpa Thomas remained standing, his posture rigid, his disappointment heavier than his anger. "A photo?" Grandma Ruth repeated. "What photo?" Grandpa didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. His hands trembled slightly, not from age, but from rage held in check for too long. "You sent this to me," he said, holding the screen out toward my mother. Diane hesitated, then slowly took the phone. The color drained from her face. On the screen was a picture of me, or at least, someone who looked like me at a quick glance, standing next to a black Chevrolet Equinox. Sunglasses hid most of the face. The angle was deliberate. Cropped just enough to be believable. But now that I was seeing it up close, the truth was obvious. "That's not Claire," Grandma Ruth said sharply. "That's Megan." Everyone turned toward her. "I know my granddaughters," she continued. "Claire stands straight. Megan always leans on one hip like that. And those sunglasses, those are hers." My stomach twisted. So even Grandma had noticed. I only meant to smooth things over," Diane stammered. "Your father was excited about the gift, and Megan was in such a difficult place. New job, pregnancy, bills piling up. You didn't think." Grandpa cut in. "You committed fraud." The word echoed through the room like a gunshot. Megan wasn't there yet. Of course she wasn't. She never showed up early for anything, especially not when accountability might be waiting. "You lied to me," Grandpa continued, his voice low and dangerous. "You lied to your daughter. And you stole." "I didn't steal," Diane snapped, defensive now. "It stayed in the family." I laughed. The sound surprised everyone, including me. "Funny," I said bitterly. "Because when it comes to me, I'm never family enough." Diane turned toward me sharply. "That's not fair. Isn't it?" I shot back. "You took a car bought in my name and gave it to Megan without telling me. You let me struggle. You watched me take buses in the rain. You watched me spend half my paycheck on ride shares just to get to work on time." Grandma Ruth covered her mouth. "I thought you preferred independence," Diane said weakly. "No," I said. "You preferred Megan." The front door opened. Megan's voice floated in from the hallway. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was awful." "Traffic? In my car?" She walked into the living room glowing, one hand resting on her baby bump, the other holding her phone. She stopped short when she saw everyone's faces. What's going on? Grandpa turned to her slowly. Megan, he said, where did you get the black Equinox you've been driving? Megan blinked. Once. Twice. Oh, she said lightly. That? Jake bought it for me. I posted about it. I didn't look at her. I looked at my mother. Tell him, I said quietly. Diane opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Megan, she said, your grandfather bought that car, for Claire. Megan's smile vanished. That's not true, she said quickly. Mom? It is, Grandma Ruth snapped. And you know it. Megan's eyes filled with tears instantly, like a switch had been flipped. I needed it, she cried. I'm pregnant. Claire has a job. She's fine. Something inside Grandpa finally broke. You don't take from one child to give to another, he said. Not like this. She never asked for help, Megan sobbed. I finally looked at her. I never knew help was an option, I said. Because whenever I needed anything, I was told to be strong. The room fell silent again. Grandpa took a deep breath. Tomorrow morning, he said, I'm calling my lawyer. That car is registered in Claire's name. It will be returned. Or this goes further. Diane gasped. You wouldn't. I already have, he replied. Megan stared at him, stunned. You can't take it away from me. Yes, he said calmly. I can. And for the first time in my life, someone was choosing me. The consequences no one expected, the next morning felt unreal. I barely slept, my mind replaying every word from the night before. By the time sunlight filtered through the lace curtains of my childhood bedroom, my phone was already buzzing. A text from Megan. We need to talk. Please. I didn't reply. Downstairs, Grandpa Thomas was already on the phone, his voice calm but unyielding. I caught fragments as I stepped into the kitchen: registration, misrepresentation, unauthorized transfer. My mother Diane sat at the table, pale, her coffee untouched. Grandma Ruth moved quietly between the counter and the stove, pretending to clean while listening to every word. When Grandpa ended the call, he looked at all of us. My lawyer will be here this afternoon, he said. Until then, no one touches that car. Diane's hands shook. You're making this a legal matter. Do you have any idea what this could do to Megan? What it could do, he snapped. She's been driving a car that doesn't belong to her. Actions have consequences. The front door slammed. Megan stormed in, eyes red, phone clutched tightly in her hand. You called a lawyer, she demanded. Yes, Grandpa said simply. Megan turned to me. Are you really going to let this happen? I swallowed hard. I didn't cause this. You could stop it, she pressed. Just tell him you don't want the car. I looked at her, really looked at her. You never asked me, I said. You never even told me. She scoffed. You don't even drive much. That's because I didn't have a car, I replied. Diane stood up. Enough. We're family. Grandpa laughed, a short, humorless sound. Family doesn't lie. Family doesn't steal. The lawyer arrived just after noon. A sharp-dressed woman named Miss Keller, carrying a leather briefcase and an air of quiet authority. She sat at the dining table, spreading documents neatly in front of her. The vehicle, she said, is registered solely in Claire's name. Any use of it without her consent is unauthorized. Megan's face went white. But my mom gave it to me, she argued. Ms. Keller didn't even blink. Your mother had no legal authority to do so. Diane's voice cracked. I was trying to help my daughter. You helped one by harming another, Grandma Ruth said firmly. Ms. Keller looked at Megan. The car must be returned by end of day. And if I don't? Megan snapped. Ms. Keller closed the folder. Then we proceed with a theft report. The word hung heavy in the air. The baby monitor on the counter crackled softly, absurdly loud in the silence. Megan burst into tears. I'll lose everything, she sobbed. My job is far. Jake will be furious. Diane rushed to her side. We'll figure something out. No, Grandpa said. You won't. Everyone froze. You will not take from Claire again to fix this, he said. This ends today. Megan looked at me with raw desperation. Please. I felt my chest tighten. Old instincts screamed at me to give in. To make things easier. To sacrifice. But something had changed. I'm sorry, I said. But this isn't mine to fix. Megan's expression hardened. So you're really doing this? I'm finally not doing anything, I replied. I'm just not stopping the truth. The car was returned that evening. Megan pulled into the driveway in silence, got out, and handed the keys to Grandpa without a word. Her eyes avoided mine. He turned to me and placed the keys in my palm. 4 years, he said quietly, I thought I was helping both of you. I see now I was wrong. My throat burned. I don't want this to destroy the family, I whispered. Grandpa squeezed my hand. The lies did that. Not you. Diane watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. That night, I drove alone for the first time. The city lights blurred as I realized something powerful. Justice didn't feel loud. It felt quiet. And heavy. And necessary. The family meeting that changed everything, the house didn't feel the same after the car was returned. No one spoke during dinner that night. Forks scraped against plates, glasses clinked softly, and every sound felt louder than it should have. Megan barely touched her food. My mother, Diane, kept glancing between Grandpa Thomas and me, as if waiting for one of us to explode. Neither of us did. The next morning, Grandpa called for a family meeting. Living room. 10 minutes, he said, his voice leaving no room for debate. I sat on the edge of the armchair, keys heavy in my pocket. Grandma Ruth settled beside Grandpa on the couch, her posture straight, her expression calm but resolved. Diane and Megan took the opposite sofa, a visible line drawn between us. Grandpa folded his hands. This situation forced me to look back, he began. Not just at what happened with the car, but at years of behavior I ignored. Diane stiffened. I favored peace over truth, he continued. And that was my mistake. Megan crossed her arms. Are we really doing this now? Yes, Grandma Ruth said sharply. We are. Grandpa nodded. Megan, you've been supported your entire adult life. Rent. Childcare. Emergencies. And every time, it came at someone else's expense. That's not fair, Megan snapped. I needed help. And Claire didn't. Grandma asked quietly. Megan looked away. Diane's voice trembled. You're making it sound like we hurt her on purpose. You did, Grandpa replied. By choosing convenience over fairness. My heart pounded. I hadn't planned to speak, but the words came anyway. I learned early not to ask, I said. Because the answer was always no. Or maybe later. And later never came. Diane stared at me, tears forming. I thought I was teaching you independence. You taught me invisibility, I replied. Silence followed. Then Grandpa dropped the bomb. I've made changes to my will. Diane's head snapped up. What? I'm restructuring my estate, he said calmly. Effective immediately. Megan sat forward. Because of the car. Because of the pattern, he corrected. Grandma Ruth placed a hand on his arm. We discussed this at length. You can't punish Megan for being supported, Diane protested. I'm not punishing anyone, Grandpa said. I'm correcting an imbalance. He looked at me. Claire, from now on, any financial gift or inheritance intended for you will be given directly to you. No intermediaries. My throat tightened. Megan shot to her feet. So you're choosing her now? I'm choosing fairness, he replied. For the first time. Megan laughed bitterly. Unbelievable. After everything I'm dealing with. You're dealing with consequences, Grandma Ruth said. There's a difference. Megan turned to me, eyes blazing. Hope you're happy. I met her gaze. I didn't ask for this. I asked for honesty. She stormed out of the room. Diane followed, hesitating at the door. She looked back at me, regret written all over her face. I didn't realize how much I hurt you, she whispered. I nodded. That's the problem. That afternoon, I packed my things. Not out of anger, but clarity. Grandpa stood at the door, as I loaded my suitcase into the trunk. You're always welcome here, he said. But you don't have to stay to keep the peace. I know, I said softly. Thank you for seeing me. He smiled sadly. I always did. I just didn't act soon enough. As I drove away, I felt something unfamiliar. Freedom. When the safety net disappeared, I didn't go far. I moved back into my small studio apartment downtown, the one I'd never stopped paying for, just in case. The place smelled faintly of coffee and laundry detergent, familiar and grounding. For the first time in days, I slept through the night. That peace didn't last long. 3 days later, my phone rang. Mom? I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a text appeared. Please call me. We need to talk. I stared at the screen, then put the phone face down. I wasn't ready to comfort the person who had hurt me. At my hotel job, things felt lighter. Driving to work instead of catching the bus felt surreal. I arrived early, stayed late, and for the first time, my energy wasn't spent just surviving. Meanwhile, everything back at my grandparents' house was unraveling. Grandma Ruth called me that evening. Megan quit her job, she said bluntly. What? I nearly dropped the phone. She says the commute is impossible without the car. Jake's furious. He thought the SUV was theirs. A familiar ache twisted in my chest, not guilt, but grief for what could have been avoided. And Mom? I asked quietly. Ruth sighed. Reality is catching up to her. That reality arrived in my inbox 2 days later. An email from my mother, Diane. Claire, I owe you an apology. Not the kind you say to move on, but the kind you say when you finally understand what you've done wrong. I read it slowly. She admitted everything. The favoritism. The excuses. The belief that I'd be fine because I was strong. She wrote about how she'd convinced herself Megan needed more because Megan demanded more. I mistook loud need for real need, she wrote. And I failed you. I didn't reply right away. Megan, on the other hand, didn't bother apologizing. She showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find her standing there, eyes red, pride gone. You ruined my life, she said. I leaned against the doorframe. No. The lies did. You took everything from me. I shook my head. I took back what was mine. She scoffed. Grandpa cut me off. You know that. I blinked. Completely. No more emergency help. No more safety net. Something in her voice cracked. Fear. For the first time, she whispered, I'm on my own. I studied her face. That's where I've always been, I said. She had no response. The following week, Grandpa Thomas invited me to lunch. I want you to hear this from me, he said, stirring his tea. I set aside a trust in your name. For your future. Education. A home, whatever you choose. My eyes burned. I don't want this to hurt anyone, I said. It won't, he replied. It will help you. That's enough. Back at work, my manager pulled me aside. There's an opening for operations lead, she said. You've earned it. I accepted without hesitation. That night, I finally replied to my mother. I forgive you. But trust will take time. She responded almost instantly. I understand. Megan didn't contact me again. And for the first time, I wasn't chasing approval. I was building a life. Choosing myself without apology. Life didn't magically become perfect after everything fell apart. But it became honest. My promotion came with longer hours and heavier responsibility, yet I welcomed it. I learned systems I'd never touched before, led meetings that once intimidated me, and for the first time, I wasn't apologizing for taking up space. Driving my own car to work every morning felt symbolic, like proof that I was finally moving forward on my own terms. A month passed. Then 2. I didn't hear from Megan at all. Not a text. Not a call. Nothing. My mother, Diane, reached out carefully, like someone approaching a skittish animal. She sent updates instead of demands. I started therapy. I'm learning things about myself that are uncomfortable. I wish I had done this sooner. I read each message but replied sparingly. Healing, I learned, didn't require instant forgiveness. It required boundaries. One Sunday afternoon, Grandpa Thomas invited me over again. Just me. No tension. No ambush. Grandma Ruth baked bread while we sat at the kitchen table. The smell filled the house with something warm and steady. I'm proud of you, Grandpa said simply. Those 4 words hit harder than anything else. I spent years believing strength meant silence, I admitted. Now I realize it means speaking, even when it's uncomfortable. He nodded. I should have protected you sooner. You protected me now, I said. That matters. As I was leaving, Grandma slipped an envelope into my hand. Open it later, she said with a wink. Inside was an old photo. Me, at 12 years old, standing next to Grandpa at a construction site, both of us wearing oversized hard hats. Written on the back in his handwriting, for the one who never stopped trying. I cried in the car. 2 weeks later, Megan finally called. I almost didn't answer. Almost. Claire, she said, her voice quieter than I remembered. I I'm not okay. I took a deep breath. What's going on? She exhaled shakily. Jake left. He said I relied on everyone else to fix things. That I never learned how to stand on my own. I closed my eyes. I'm working again, she continued. It's part-time. It's hard. I waited. I wanted to say, I'm sorry, she whispered. For everything. The apology wasn't perfect. It wasn't eloquent. But it was real. I accept it, I said. But things won't be the same. I know, she replied. I don't expect them to be. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, thinking about how strange life was. How losing something unfairly could teach you what you deserved all along. I enrolled in evening classes the next week, hospitality management. Something I'd put off for years because I couldn't afford the time or the money. Now I could. Not because someone rescued me, but because I'd finally been seen. What I finally learned to keep, the first time I drove out of the city alone, I didn't have a destination. The highway stretched open in front of me, the late afternoon sun turning the pavement gold. Music played softly, something calm and steady. I rolled the windows down and let the air rush in, carrying away pieces of a life I no longer needed to carry. 4 years, I had measured myself by what I could endure. What I could tolerate. What I could survive quietly. Now, I was learning a different measurement, what I was willing to protect. Classes were harder than I expected. Balancing full-time work and evening lectures pushed me in ways I hadn't anticipated. But every challenge felt chosen, not forced. I wasn't scrambling anymore. I was building. One evening, after class, my phone buzzed. A message from Grandma Ruth. Your grandfather talks about you every day. He says you remind him of himself. I smiled at the screen longer than I meant to. The trust Grandpa Thomas set up wasn't extravagant, but it was intentional. Enough for tuition. Enough for a down payment someday. Enough to give me options. And for the first time, money didn't feel like leverage, it felt like support. At work, things changed too. My ideas were being heard. My decisions trusted. When the general manager announced she'd be relocating next year, she pulled me aside. I want you ready for this role, she said. Start preparing. I walked back to my office in a daze. That night, my mother called. I answered. I wanted you to hear this from me, Diane said. I'm stepping back financially from Megan. Completely. I closed my eyes. That's hard, I said honestly. Yes, she replied. But necessary. I need to stop rescuing and start loving properly. There was a pause. I'm proud of you, she added softly. The words landed differently than they once would have. I accepted them, not as proof of my worth, but as recognition of my growth. A month later, Megan invited me for coffee. We sat across from each other, strangers learning new rules. She looked tired. Stronger. More grounded. I don't expect forgiveness to fix things, she said. I just wanted to show you I'm trying. I see that, I replied. And I did. That winter, Grandpa's health began to decline. Nothing dramatic, just time doing what it does. I visited often. We talked about everything and nothing. He told stories I'd never heard before. One afternoon, he took my hand. Promise me something, he said. Anything. Don't ever shrink yourself to keep others comfortable. Tears blurred my vision. I promise. He passed away peacefully 2 months later. At the reading of the will, there were no surprises. Only clarity. Fairness. I stood outside afterward, holding the same car keys that had once symbolized betrayal. Now, they symbolized choice. That evening, I parked outside my apartment and sat for a long time before going in. I thought about the girl who never knew an SUV existed. The woman who demanded the truth. And the life that followed. Some people inherit money. Others inherit lessons. I inherited myself.